Let's go ahead and go through a few more examples of the desk checks and see how they're used. So in this example, that we're just going to do a simple one. We've got three variable declarations, and in each of these three variable declarations, the variables are initialized with values. We've got a little bit of arithmetic going in these initializations, and so the desk check is just going to help us figure out what's there. So line 1, we get subtotal is equal to 300. So we come down to our desk check and just type in 300. We get tax is equal to subtotal times 0.06. So we can bring in our calculator here and type 300 times 0.06, and we get 18. And so now we know that tax is equal to 18. And then our total is equal to subtotal plus tax. So 300 plus 18 equals 318. So that one is fairly straightforward. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one. This one we're going to, the operators are going to be involved a little bit. I've added the assignment operator table in here so that we can reference that, because we kind of have a couple of those in the next ones. So we'll do this one here. Here's a combination of variable reuse, which means we've got the multiple columns or multiple rows here, because where this variable is actually going to receive multiple values throughout this code. But it is going to be initialized here. The total is going to be equal to 200. And now the next line initializes tax, which it's saying is total times 0.1. Most of you could probably do this one in your head, but let's go ahead and use a calculator and do 200 times 0.1 gives us 20. And remember, this is multiplication, right? So that's how we got that. So 200 times 0.1. And then now the total is reassigned, and we're using this assignment operator that is a plus and an equal sign, which if we look up here is an addition assignment, which means that really what we're going to be doing here, and I'll put in our comment line here, is total equals total plus tax. So we're going to say total equals 200. So total is going to equal itself plus the tax. So 20 or 200 plus 20. So total now is going to be equal to 220. I think that fairly straightforward. We're going to come down here now to variable where this code is just one variable used throughout the entire thing, and it's going to be doing the exact same thing this one was doing, but we're going to do it in 2 lines of code using an assignment operator versus 3 lines of code. So once again, our total initializes at 200, but this time we're going to use the assignment operator of multiplication assignment, which is the equivalent of total equals total times 1.1, which you notice the only difference here is we added a 1.1 in here, because if it, as we know with multiplication, you'll end up with the same mathematics if we do that. So our answer here is going to be total equals 200 times 1.1, which equals 220. So that's kind of two simple desk checks there. Let's go ahead and scroll down and do a couple more real quick. We're going to use here now the increment operators. Talk a little bit more about those in these desk checks. Now these are the ones that allow you to basically add a 1 or subtract a 1 to the variable with 2 simple characters, and that's either a plus plus or a minus minus. As you noticed here and as you read, whether you put the plus plus or the minus minus in front of the variable or after the variable is important if you're going to be doing it in the middle of mathematical functions. I think it's said in the text that if you are just doing this, obviously it doesn't matter if it's before or after, but if you've got some more mathematical operations going on, it is extremely important, the order or the placement of those things. And in this one, it's the we're going to do an example of the pre-increment, which in the text says that you will basically add the 1 to this variable before any of the rest of the code runs. So keep that in mind as we go ahead and move through. So we're going to see here that x is initialized at 6, and then y is going to be one of these things. Now you got to look through here, and order of operations is important, because we know that since this is a pre-increment, that this takes precedent over everything else that's going to run. And even though this multiplication, as you know, has order of operations precedence over addition, this one is even higher precedence. So the first thing we have to do when we see this is increment x. And so x now is going to be 7, which affects our code here, because now we're doing 7 times 4, right, which is going to be 28. And then we're adding the 6 into that, which gives us our 34. So, and you know, it's always smart to double check your math, right? So we had 7 times 4 plus 6 equals 34. Which moves us on then to the very next one, which is the post-increment, which just behaves slightly differently, but important nonetheless, is we start out with the same initial value, and then in the next thing we see that it's a post-decrement or post-increment, which means we don't have to deal with it till after we've done our math operation. So when we run this, x is still equal to 6. So we're going to do 6 times 4, which we'll go ahead and do here, our 6 times 4, which gives us our 24, and then of course our plus 6, and that gives us 30. So in this case, y equals 30, and then after we're done with that, now we go in and we change x to 7. So now any subsequent lines of JavaScript, x will be 7. So I hope that helps give you a little bit more samples of the desk checks. If there are others that we ought to be looking at, let me know.